Three-time Mr. Olympia winner Sergio Oliva, known as the Myth for his extraordinary talent and physique, is a true legend in the bodybuilding world. His incredible talent and physique left the world speechless, redefining what was possible in the sport. But what if I told you that beneath the titles and the global admiration, Sergio's life was far from perfect? In fact, his story holds a heartbreaking twist that would shatter even the strongest of spirits. This is the darkest chapter of his life, one that you won't see coming. So, where did it all start? In 1941, amidst the heat of a sweltering July 4th, a young boy named Sergio Oliva was born in the heart of Cuba. Life in the small village of Guambaco was harsh and unforgiving, especially for a 12-year-old child laboring alongside his father in the vast, sun-baked sugarcane fields. The sweat, the toil, and the back-breaking work became Sergio's daily reality, molding his body and spirit with an intensity that few could endure. Little did young Sergio know that this hard work would pay him back many-fold in ways he could never have imagined. As Sergio grew older, so did his strength. He was an absolute powerhouse. His father, recognizing the strength and resilience in his son, made a decision that would alter Sergio's life forever. At just 16 years old, Sergio was pushed to enlist in the army of the notorious dictator Fulgencio Batista. At the time, Batista's regime was crumbling under the relentless pressure of Fidel Castro's revolutionary forces, and in his desperation, Batista welcomed any able-bodied young man into his ranks. Sergio, with his towering physique and untapped potential, was thrust into a world of violence and chaos. This world was new to him and far from the fields he once knew. However, when Castro's revolution triumphed, Sergio found himself lost in a nation that was no longer his own. The Cuba he had known had transformed, and he was left to navigate a world filled with uncertainty and fear. It was during this tumultuous time that a friend extended an olive branch, inviting Sergio to a local weightlifting club. What seemed like a simple, perhaps even trivial invitation turned out to be the spark that ignited a passion within him. What he didn't know was that this passion was not just an opportunity, it was the door to a new life. As soon as Sergio gripped the barbell, it was clear that this was no ordinary young man. His body, honed by years of labor, responded to the weights as if he had been born for this. In just 6 months, Sergio's raw talent and unparalleled strength allowed him to clean and jerk over 400 pounds. This was indeed an astonishing feat for someone only 20 years old. The word of a mighty man with immense power started to spread, and Sergio's fame started rising. His meteoric rise did not go unnoticed, and soon the Cuban weightlifting team eagerly recruited him to represent his country at the 1961 Pan American Games in Kingston in Jamaica. This seemed like another good opportunity, but there was something else going on in Sergio's mind. He was fighting a battle no one else could, a battle with himself. Behind Sergio's determination and focus lay a heart weighed down by the desire for freedom. As he traveled to Jamaica, he knew that this competition was more than just a chance to showcase his strength. It was his opportunity to escape the oppressive grip of Castro's regime. This was his do or die. So, with a lot of nerve and resolve, Sergio devised a plan. He approached one of the guards assigned by Castro to monitor the athletes, and calmly requested to take a walk to clear his mind before the big event. The moment the guard's attention wavered, Sergio's instincts kicked in. He bolted, his legs pumping with the speed of an Olympic sprinter, each stride carrying him closer to the American embassy and further from the life he longed to leave behind. His heart raced, not just from the exertion, but from the fear that any moment could be his last if the guards opened fire. But fate was on his side. Sergio reached the gates of the American embassy, breathless and trembling, and there, amidst the tension and hope, he requested political asylum. In that moment, the weight of his past was lifted, and Sergio Oliva, the once humble boy from Guambaco, was free to forge a new path. His journey from a small town in Cuba to the land of opportunity was just the beginning, but it was already clear that Sergio Oliva was destined for greatness. After his daring escape to America, Sergio Oliva found himself in the bustling city of Miami, Florida. His new life began humbly, working as a TV repairman. I know. It was a far cry from the life he wanted, but it was heaven as compared to the chaotic days of battling in Batista's army or the rigorous work as a farmer. And this was America, the land of opportunity, and Sergio was determined to make the most of it. In 1963, fate paved a new way, and Sergio relocated to Chicago. Chicago, he would say with his thick accent, a city whose name captivated him as much as its promise of a better future. Sergio had hopes and big dreams. However, life here, too, was anything but easy. Sergio would toil long hours in a grueling steel mill. This was the kind of work that could break even the strongest of men. But Sergio was no ordinary man. Despite the exhaustion that came with 10-hour factory shifts, he never let go of the passion that had carried him through the toughest times in Cuba, weight training. Every day, after hours of backbreaking labor, he would head over to the Duncan YMCA, a place known for its hardcore atmosphere and its reputation as a haven for serious weightlifters and bodybuilders. Duncan was a world in itself, filled with the clanging of heavy weights and the determined grunts of those who pushed their bodies to the limit. It was here that Sergio caught the eye of Bob Gaeta, an older and seasoned bodybuilder who would later win the prestigious Mr. America and Mr. Universe titles in 1966. Gaeta saw something special in the young Cuban, something beyond the raw strength and natural talent that Sergio possessed. He saw a potential that, if properly harnessed, could make Sergio a legend. Wasting no time, Gaeta took Sergio under his wing. He introduced Sergio to the world of bodybuilding, teaching him how to sculpt his physique and train with the discipline and focus required to rise to the top. Sergio's incredible genetics combined with his relentless work ethic set him apart from the rest. Day after day, he would endure the punishing demands of the factory only to push his body even further during his grueling 3-hour workouts. His dedication was absolute, and it wasn't long before the results were impossible to ignore. Sergio's muscles seemed to grow with an almost superhuman speed. It was as if each rep in the gym added layers of mass and definition to his already intimidating body frame. But perhaps what was most astonishing about Sergio wasn't just his strength or his perfectly sculpted physique. It was his metabolism. In an era when most bodybuilders would starve themselves on strict, low-carb diets to achieve the necessary muscle definition, Sergio defied all expectations. Wondering how? Well, it was simple. He didn't diet at all. Instead, he indulged in the very foods that others would consider forbidden. Take hamburgers, for example, or hot dogs or soda pop. Even when he was preparing for a contest, Sergio's diet was anything but conventional. Yet his body responded with the kind of result that left others in awe. People were confused. How could a man with such humble beginnings defy all odds, not only in life but also in the bodybuilding world? What was it that made this man special? How was he doing it all? Was there a trick, or perhaps some magic secret to his success? One day, while working in the factory, Sergio's supervisor, who had long marveled at the young man's incredible physique, decided to uncover the secret to his extraordinary size and strength. With curiosity getting the better of him, the supervisor sneaked into the lunchroom during Sergio's break, eager to see what kind of magical foods the bodybuilder was consuming. But what he found left him utterly dumbfounded. There, sitting casually at a table, was Sergio Oliva, enjoying a lunch that consisted of 2 packs of Hostess Twinkies and 2 bottles of Mountain Dew. It was a sight that defied every rule of bodybuilding, yet it was just another testament to the incredible enigma that was Sergio Oliva, a man who, against all odds and logic, was destined to become one of the greatest bodybuilders of all time. Sergio Oliva was the kind of presence that could make even the most confident man second-guess his own reflection. If you had seen a photo of Oliva in his prime, your first reaction might have been disbelief. But no, it wasn't a morph or a camera trick. Oliva's physique was so extraordinary it pushed the boundaries of what seemed physically possible. In an era when bodybuilding often flirted with exaggeration, Oliva was the rare embodiment of both substance and spectacle. His muscular frame wasn't just big, it was a marvel of proportions and shape that seemed to defy natural limits. However, achieving success wasn't an easy road for him, despite outshining almost everyone. When Sergio Oliva embarked on his bodybuilding journey in 1963 under the banner of the Amateur Athletic Union, aka AAU, he encountered challenges that went far beyond his remarkable physique. The AAU at the time was a bastion of bias and prejudice. The organization often favored white, conventionally attractive competitors, seeing them as more fitting representatives for the Mr. America title. This racial prejudice made it incredibly difficult for black-skinned athletes like Oliva to get a fair chance. The young Cuban faced an uphill battle, not just against other competitors, but also against a system that was stacked against him. In that year, Oliva lost the Mr. Chicago title partly due to his struggle with English. Yep, apparently not being able to speak English properly was a barrier that unfortunately played into the prejudices of the time. Despite these setbacks, Oliva's resolve remained unshaken. He returned in 1964 and reclaimed the Mr. Chicago title. It was indeed a testament to his perseverance. Yet, the Mr. America title continued to slip through his fingers as he repeatedly lost to bodybuilders who were nowhere near his level of physical prowess. His disappointment was palpable, but his spirit remained indomitable. Even when he triumphed by winning the 1966 AAU Junior Mr. America title and the most muscular award at that year's Mr. America contest, the overall victory was once again denied to him, despite his clear superiority. Undeterred by these continual disappointments, Oliva decided to shift his focus to the International Federation of Bodybuilders, aka IFBB. This decision marked a turning point in his career. The IFBB offered him a more equitable platform, and Oliva seized the opportunity with both hands. In 1966, he captured the Mr. World title and secured a commendable third place in the inaugural Mr. Olympia contest. That year, Larry Scott had won the competition for the second time in 2 years. Nonetheless, Oliva's arrival in the IFBB was nothing short of electrifying. After another grueling year of relentless training, Oliva dominated the stage and clinched the 1967 IFBB Mr. Universe title, an event held amidst the splendor of the Montreal World's Fair. By now, Sergio Oliva was earning acclaim as one of the rarest bodybuilders who had it all. His physique was a marvel of shape and symmetry, bursting with unparalleled size and definition in every muscle group. Unlike many bodybuilders who struggled to perfect one or two areas, Oliva seemed to defy all limits. His forearms were not just large but robustly developed, and his calves were long and diamond-shaped, perfectly complementing his extraordinary form. The Myth, as he was known, stood as a symbol of the sheer force of natural talent and unyielding determination, defying all prejudices that once stood in his way. Now let's head to the 1967 Mr. Olympia contest. When Sergio Oliva strode into the contest in New York, it was as if the very air crackled with anticipation. The crowd was left in awe, unable to tear their eyes away from the phenomenal physique. Harold Poole, who had claimed the runner-up spot behind Larry Scott for the previous 2 years, found himself eclipsed once again. The formidable Chuck Sipes, known for his own rugged build, was no match for the Cuban sensation. The title was unequivocally Oliva's, and with it, he cemented his place as the new king of bodybuilding. The bodybuilding world had witnessed the rise of a legend. Sergio Oliva wasn't just another competitor, he was a phenomenon. His combination of extraordinary genetics, jaw-dropping proportions, and an imposing stage presence elevated him to the status of a golden era icon. With 3 Mr. Olympia titles to his name, he carved out a legacy that still resonates with fans, many of whom consider him the greatest bodybuilder of all time. Did you know that Arnold Schwarzenegger, despite being one of Sergio Oliva's greatest rivals, was also one of his most ardent admirers? Their competition is considered one of the most legendary rivalries in bodybuilding history. But there's so much more to this story than just rivalry. When Sergio Oliva burst onto the scene, he was an unstoppable force. His victory at the 1967 Mr. Olympia was not just a win, it was a declaration. Oliva was there to stay. Oliva was there to shine. His physique, with its immense muscle size and almost mythical proportions, set a new standard in bodybuilding. His charisma and commanding presence on stage made him the undisputed king of bodybuilding. It was as if he was invincible. In 1968, Oliva's dominance was so profound that no other competitors dared to challenge him for the Mr. Olympia title. He won the contest uncontested, reinforcing his legendary status. But little did he know that a formidable challenger was emerging on the horizon. Arnold Schwarzenegger, a young Austrian with a rapidly rising reputation, had been invited to the US by bodybuilding mogul Joe Weider. At just 21 years old and standing 6 foot 2 inches, Arnold had already made waves by winning the 1968 Pro Mr. Universe in London. The man was absolute fire. With his impressive 250-pound frame and 21-inch biceps, Arnold made other bodybuilders tremble. It was at the 1968 IFBB Mr. Universe contest in Miami that Schwarzenegger had his first close encounter with the Myth. Although Arnold was defeated by Frank Zane, the real spectacle for him was the guest poser of the evening, Sergio Oliva. Witnessing Oliva's awe-inspiring and chiseled body left Arnold stunned with admiration. At that moment, Arnold knew he had to rise to Oliva's level and defeat him. Arnold was captivated. The man in front of him was a warrior. Despite not having the same sponsorship advantages as Arnold and his training partner Franco Columbu, Oliva endured grueling labor in the freezing Chicago winters. After long days of work, Oliva would head to the Duncan YMCA in Chicago, where he would spend hours training in the basement gym. Schwarzenegger realized that if he wanted to reach the pinnacle of bodybuilding, he had to rise to the challenge Oliva represented. This moment of revelation set Arnold on a path of relentless improvement and transformation. So you can say that the rivalry between Oliva and Schwarzenegger wasn't just about competition. It was a catalyst that pushed both bodybuilders to new heights. Eager to prove his mettle, Arnold came back fiercer. The first monumental clash between Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sergio Oliva took place at the 1969 Mr. Olympia. After an intense year of training at Gold's Gym in Venice, California, Arnold was in peak condition. He was tanned, ripped, and brimming with confidence. Yet, the moment he stepped backstage, he was confronted by the presence of Sergio Oliva, the Myth. Sergio, clad in a pair of butcher's overalls, was preparing himself in a way that would leave a lasting impression. When he finally shed the overalls, he did so with a display of sheer power and grace. As Oliva flexed his massive arms and expanded his lats, Schwarzenegger, despite his own impressive physique, knew that the battle was going to be brutal. In his first book, Education of a Bodybuilder, Arnold vividly described the psychological impact of seeing Oliva backstage. He said he was instantly psyched out, feeling the weight of the Myth's dominance even before they stepped on stage. Despite this intimidation, the contest was far from a walkover. Schwarzenegger, at 6'2" and weighing 235 pounds, was noticeably larger than Oliva. The Austrian made a bold statement with his own classic three-quarterback poses and bicep shots, aiming to eclipse Oliva's powerful front double biceps and most muscular poses. The judges were torn, and in a nail-biting decision, Oliva narrowly edged out Schwarzenegger with a 4-3 vote, proving he had finally met a competitor who could match him. Determined to understand and overcome his rival, Schwarzenegger took a significant step later that year. He traveled to Chicago to train with Oliva for a week. The experience was eye-opening for Arnold. He witnessed firsthand the incredible strength and dedication of the Myth. Oliva's impressive feats of strength were astonishing. While Schwarzenegger would struggle with 315 pounds on the bench press, Oliva effortlessly handled high reps with over 400 pounds. In 1970, both bodybuilders faced off again. They were slated to compete at the Mr. Olympia contest in New York, but before that, they entered the AAU Professional Mr. World contest in Columbus, Ohio, just 2 weeks prior. Neither man was aware of the other's participation until they were both on stage, and the competition was fierce. The event was broadcasted by ABC's Wide World of Sports, and the bright television lights presented a new challenge. Oliva, having applied too much baby oil, looked glossy and less defined under the harsh lights. Schwarzenegger capitalized on this, showcasing his superior conditioning and presentation. The result was a historic victory for Arnold, marking the first time he defeated Oliva in front of millions of viewers. It was a critical moment for Schwarzenegger, establishing his presence to the American public. Post-contest, Schwarzenegger, while celebrating his victory, candidly told Sergio Oliva that if he had been just 10 pounds heavier, the outcome might have been different. This constructive feedback was taken to heart by Oliva, which was the root of the alleged rivalry. But there's no denying that Arnold Schwarzenegger had emerged victorious thanks to his hard work and dedication. With his sharper, more aggressive physique, he dethroned Sergio Oliva as the king of bodybuilding. The shift in the sport was seismic, as Oliva's reign came to an abrupt and dramatic end. Adding insult to injury, Oliva was slapped with a suspension for competing at the NABBA Mr. Universe just a week before the Olympia. This punishment not only thwarted his hopes for a rematch with Schwarzenegger, but also meant he missed the 1991 Mr. Olympia, where he faced further defeat at the hands of the legendary Bill Pearl at the Universe in London. Fueled by determination and a burning desire to reclaim his title, Oliva turned his forces to the 1972 Mr. Olympia. Under the guidance of Arthur Jones, the creator of the revolutionary Nautilus training system, the Myth was more formidable than ever. The 1972 Mr. Olympia was held in Essen, Germany, a location Arnold Schwarzenegger would later dub Arnold Country. The stage was set for a dramatic showdown, with more bodybuilders than ever competing for the coveted title. Yet, all eyes were on the anticipated clash between Oliva and Schwarzenegger, and the fans were not disappointed. The photographs of Oliva from that night, captured by the talented Benno Dahmen and Albert Busek, are nothing short of legendary. Oliva's physique was awe-inspiring. The man had massive quads and an upper body that defied belief, all framed by his impossibly narrow 28-inch waist. The highlight of the evening came as Oliva delivered what would become known as the Myth pose or the victory pose. It was a moment of pure artistry, rarely achieved with such power and grace, and remains one of bodybuilding's most iconic images. Some say it radiated the same grandeur and heroism as the famous photograph of Muhammad Ali standing over Sonny Liston. Despite the stunning display, the judges awarded Schwarzenegger the title in a decision that many found controversial. Oliva was shattered. The heartbreak was evident on his face. Schwarzenegger, now a 3-time Mr. Olympia champion, stood triumphant with the Sandow Trophy, while Oliva's quest for redemption seemed to slip away. The 1972 Mr. Olympia marked the end of an era. It was the final time these two titans would face off on stage. Perhaps that's why the contest left a lingering bitterness for Oliva, who then sought new challenges in Europe, competing under various organizations such as WABA and the now defunct WBBG, which awarded a trophy called Mr. Olympus. In the early 1980s, Oliva made a return to the IFBB and the Mr. Olympia stage. By then, in his early 40s, his best finish was 8th place in both 1984 and 1985, with the 1985 Olympia being his final competitive appearance. After retiring, Oliva embraced a quieter life in Chicago, working as a police officer and staying out of the limelight. He was already heartbroken about leaving behind the life he once loved, but fate had an ugly twist in store for him. While the rise and fall are almost expected in the competitive world of bodybuilding, Sergio's personal life endured a tragic and life-altering blow that left him a shadow of the icon he once was. Rumor has it that he never recovered from this trauma. In 1986, while preparing to compete again in the Mr. Olympia, disaster struck. A domestic argument with his wife Arlene escalated into violence. What happened next was nothing short of pure horror. Sergio was shot 5 times. Arlene would later claim it was an act of self-defense, asserting that Sergio was attacking her. Luckily, despite the critical injuries, including a gunshot wound dangerously close to his liver, Sergio managed to drive himself to the hospital. The shooting marked the end of his illustrious bodybuilding career. Although he survived the horrific ordeal, the physical and emotional scars were too deep. The man who had once mesmerized audiences with his awe-inspiring physique and commanding stage presence could no longer return to the stage. The agony of his personal tragedy overshadowed his once great achievements, and Sergio's best days were behind him. But thanks to his legacy, love from fans and admirers poured in. Whenever he appeared at major bodybuilding events like the Arnold Classic and Mr. Olympia, crowds lined up to snap photos with him and seek his autograph. However, the final years of Sergio's life were marked by even bigger struggles. A severe car accident and a subsequent staph infection took a toll on his health, stripping away the muscle mass that had once defined him. As he battled kidney failure, requiring dialysis 3 times a week, his physical decline was quick. The vibrant figure who once embodied strength and vitality was now frail and weary. For people who loved him, it was heartbreaking to see the once superhuman bodybuilder reduced to such a state. Sergio Oliva passed away in 2012 at the age of 71 due to kidney failure. He will forever be regarded as either the greatest bodybuilder or a close second to Arnold Schwarzenegger. Sergio Oliva will be remembered not just for his extraordinary achievements, but also for the trials he faced, which only deepened the respect and admiration we have for him. His story is a reminder of the human cost behind greatness and the enduring legacy of a true legend. What are your thoughts on Sergio's story? Share them in the comments and I'll see you in the next video.